It is the dream band viewed from outside. It's the band you could do anything you wanted to in it.
Tell him he's talking a load of shite.
Welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries brought to you by Treble Media. I'm Dave Lizabram, and this is kind of an experimental episode. We had our first Rock Docs live event a few weeks ago. We had a screening, kind of a house party kind of situation of the documentary In the Court of the Crimson King, King Crimson at 50, directed by Toby Amies. And and so afterwards, we kind of had a live Rock Docs conversation, sort of a live podcast thing. Certainly not the first to do that, but I think you know what we're talking about. Wanted to thank our host and my co-host for the podcast, Michael Rennie. My usual co-host, Andy Keats, wasn't available. He was out of town. So, so Michael stepped in, and then we had input from Roger Morrison, who's a King Crimson superfan, who kind of helped bring this together, as well as just some other folks who were there hanging out and enjoying the vibe and watching the movie and wanted to share their thoughts. So, kind of a little bit of an open discussion. So anyway, a little different from the usual, me and Andy and a guest breaking down a documentary. We had a lot of fun. We're looking forward to doing another one. Thanks to everybody who came out. And here is our post-screening live conversation about the documentary In the Court of the Crimson King, King Crimson at 50.
I'm going to start the podcast now. Welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries brought to you by Treble Media. I'm Dave, and I'm usually would be here with my co-host Andrew Keats, but he's seeing Goose at Red Rocks or something tonight. But instead, what we're doing is a little experiment. This is our first live Rock Docs event. There's a bunch of us gathered here at the home of Michael and Kristy Rennie. Michael, say hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Michael Rennie.
Michael will be my co-host for the episode.
Yeah, and hopefully others here will join me in co-hosting because I'm a terrible guest.
And our literal physical host as well. So we watched the movie In the Court of the Crimson King, King Crimson at 50. Oh, I just looked up the name of the director, but now I have to look that up again. Toby Amies. I looked him up real briefly, and I couldn't see that. It seemed like this was maybe the first full doc that he's done, something like that. So, not a regular rock doc person. But anyway, so it's a documentary about King Crimson, the prog rock band. And had you seen this?
I had not seen this before. This was on loan from our pal Roger Morrison. And, we just made this loose plan to show this in our backyard, and it became a Rock Doc special event.
Here we are. So, I hadn't seen it either. So, usually, when we do this, I have, I take notes, and I have, all this time to marinate and come up with theories, and this is, totally off the cuff. But, I don't know. Michael, why don't you just kind of describe this movie? Pitch the movie.
Yeah, all right. No, I I knew very little about King Crimson. I'm a musician, I'm a music fan, I'm a music presenter, but so I knew them by reputation, but I only knew the song Court of the Crimson King. That was kind of the only one I knew. And I knew that they were, highly regarded amongst prog rock and, other quote unquote serious technical musician fans. So I didn't know anything coming into this other than it was something of a rarity, and I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. I took 5 notes, so I'll get to those in a minute. But yeah, as we were just talking about a moment ago, it takes a while to get to the music in this documentary, which is interesting because there's so much talk about how technical the music is and what the downside is to playing poorly and what a disciplinarian Robert Fripp is. And we're good 45 minutes into it before we ever see them playing, as our man here was saying. What's your name again? James, yeah. It was a terrible setup, wasn't it?
No, that was very good.
You're the pro.
This will not be in the podcast, but you got to get a little closer to the mic for the future. Okay. I'll cut that part out. Okay, we're back. It is this weird combination. Our friend Roger, who's here, hi Roger, said was telling us before that this was you can get on the mic. It's all good. We're just passing it around. You were saying that this was there was another documentary they were making, and then they kind of pivoted. So, give us the background on that.
Yeah, the original concept, or it was called Cosmic Book, and it was a very different. Some of the same footage wound up in this film, but they had an original approach. Toby had an original approach, and then they started looking at early cuts and decided that this was not the story they were trying to tell, and so it totally morphed into a new story. There's kind of 3 threads through this thing, which is the history of King Crimson, which is what most casual users would be interested in. There is the King Crimson at 50, this particular tour, and then there's, the sad story of Bill Rieflin, which I think is a strong thread that kind of pulls together a lot of kind of what music means to these people.
Yeah, the story, part of the story, which you don't find out till near the end, is that you find out that he is very sick with cancer, and then as they're making this movie, he passes away, and so because the whole thing is the whole thing about King Crimson that I like Michael that I ever knew was that they're just so obsessive and everything has to be just right, and they're these perfectionists, and there's all the interviews through the movie with many former members of the band, because there's been 10,000 members of the band, so and people are constantly getting bounced and things. It's like The Fall, but people who know to play their instruments. So they're all it's all about Robert Fripp and how obsessive of a taskmaster he is, and it reminded me a little bit of the Frank Zappa documentary, if any of you have seen that, because it's very similar, where you're talking to a lot of people that played with this unbelievably talented and unrelenting musical force, and there's an emotional quality to that, because people talk about it. Some people, it was a great time. Some people feel like it was almost like an abusive situation. Some people, but you get this whole tapestry through it, and you can get people who can become emotional because it's there was so much, not just because of the drama of being in the band, but the what they had to devote themselves to people compare it to being this athlete or whatever. It's just such a crazy cult they've been in.
There's a tremendous number of people in this film who talk about how miserable they were being in this band, and yet obviously there's a pride in the music. Something they were doing was important to them, but it felt more like a work and an effort than. There's some joy in the music, but it seems like for the people who were involved, many of them actually struggled to get through what they were doing to create this music.
But including Robert Fripp. I mean, he talks about how he's been miserable for most of the 50 years he's been doing this project every moment of his life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they touched on it only briefly, but, okay, my problem here is that I know too much about King Crimson.
No, that's fine. I know almost nothing, so.
But there's, he went into this whole school and system of thought and philosophy. There's a whole philosophy of what music is and what it does that drives him, and then he drives other people, and they struggle to live up to the standard of what he struggles to live up to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was that nutty thing where he was showing the interviewer, how he was taking a new approach to an old guitar figure. He was like, I'm revisiting the fingering on this song. And he said, the audience won't notice it. They probably won't notice it for another year. But by then it will have, I forget how he phrased it, but he said, but by then it will have manifested throughout the rest of the band. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that is so strange and so un-rock and roll and so unlike anything I've heard from another band leader, and yet I totally get what he meant by that, was that this was going to, have outward ripples. The small change that he made at the core of the song was going to move outward. And, the arc of the movie is strange in that I feel like I'm conditioned early on to assume that Robert Fripp is just an unpleasant person, and being in the band is unpleasant, and we see him being sort of cranky and crass. But by the end of it, I realized, he's a pretty loving guy. He just expresses it in a very curmudgeonly way.
Yeah.
And he's obsessed with communication. People will ask him a question, and he'll say, that's a stupid way to ask that question. Here's how you should have asked that question.
Yeah, he's like this evil professor.
Yeah, but he genuinely seems to want the best for people around him. He just seems horrible to work with.
Yeah. So, okay, any other notes? I know you had a few notes you wanted to discuss.
Who was the nun?
Oh, the nun. Yeah.
did not
There's a whole
understand the
sequence in this
nun.
movie where all of a sudden you spend, 3 to 5 minutes of film time with this, I think, Danish nun, something like that.
She sounded Dutch.
Like okay. Oh,
Yeah.
Norwegian. So yeah, and like a real honest to goodness nun, apparently. And she's just like a huge King Crimson fan, but like instead of the movie is not the type to ask normal questions. So it's not, instead of like saying like, oh, well, how did you first hear King Crimson? Do other nuns in your nunnery? I'm gonna go say
all we listen to.
like, yeah, are they more into Primus? Like, what, And no, but yeah, a convent, sure,
exactly.
a nunnery. All right. Anyway, yeah, it's so like and then she goes on this whole philosophy of music thing. It's a lot of philosophy of music in this doc. If you're into that.
Yeah, my notes are terrible. At her part, I wrote down, "This is what I do." I don't remember what that was about. I'm sure it'll come back later. I did. There's a lot to chew on, in terms of musical guidance and wisdom in this. I forget what part of it was where somebody said something like, in this band you don't play until you have to.
Yeah,
the companion thing they said to that, it was there's a lot of listening in this band.
Yeah, there's a way that they try to communicate, and yeah, I don't know. It's either philosophy music or a lot of practicing. Like this is like watching a sports movie where like mostly you're watching them like,
run sprints.
Yeah, do calisthenics before the game, and then you get like 3 minutes of the game.
No, seriously, there are multiple scenes where you get to watch Fripp practice. Right?
Just
and
running.
Here's a guy who's been playing professionally for 50 years, and he practices like 3 to 4 hours a day, and you just see him sitting alone in a room playing these crazy arpeggios, practicing because he still feels that there's somewhere he needs to get to. And I think that says a lot about him and about the band, what it's trying to do. But as a musician, I can't imagine... He's working harder now at the peak of his fame than I have ever worked in my life.
But he kind of seems to say at one point that like he needs to keep his chops to that level for some of the, like maybe because of his age, like he needs to practice. He now needs to practice that much in order to keep his chops at the level of the music he composed when he was 25.
I think it might have always been this though. It's very technically demanding. But you don't think of it as, I love how he's like, would you ask a professional athlete to take a day off? He's saying that physically to do what they do, you have to just be doing it all the time.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. And there's, there's so much talk about discipline. It was just like, so, yeah, like not only how is one person like that, but then how do you convince other crazy people to do this together for 50 years? It's like there is a little bit of that thing where it's just like amazing.
He's the only one who did it for 50 years.
Well, no, but I mean, but he's managed to continue to get people to do it, and I wanted more Tony Levin in the movie because
Tony Levin's
bass
my
player.
favorite. He's so amazing.
He's incredible. But the little bit you get of him is incredible. But I mean, seeing him play the bass seeing all these guys it's like a movie where like even if you're not into that kind of music, I feel like watching up close people do something. It's like a sport or something like that. Like watching people of that level of skill up close doing what they do is just kind of fascinating on its own.
Yeah, it's true. And I got to say, because I know you guys all play. Sometimes when you see someone who is amazingly good, sometimes it's discouraging and it makes you want to never pick up an instrument again. And sometimes it's inspiring and it makes you want to try to, do more things. And somehow, weirdly, even though this is a level of technique that I could never get to, it kind of does make me want to play. And I will say, having seen this band a whole bunch of times, I laugh out loud sometimes at just the joyous audacity of the crazy things that they will do. It's very improvisational, and sometimes you're just like, I can't even believe they just played that. It was always so fun to see them.
Michael, anything else?
I mean, we've talked a lot about the band and we've talked a lot about the musicality, but as a film, I'm just curious. We have the Rock Docs experts in the house. Well, how does this measure up on the Rock Docs scale, just as a pure movie and an introduction to the band?
I mean, I think this one is kind of in a mix in terms of style wise, like because you have a little bit of the like history and talking to the old band members. Like that's a classic trope of a rock doc is like let's show the old band members and cutting back and forth between them when they were like young and sexy as much as King Crimson ever was to now. You get that like back and forth. And then you get the like verite aspect of like just watching them on tour and doing their thing in a the current environment, and then you have these like weird philosophical diversions with the nun. So it's kind of it's not following a strict format, but it's like there's enough that if you don't know a lot about King Crimson like myself, like I felt like it kept you. It gave you enough historical context to catch up.
Yeah, it was. I found it very engaging, and I wish we'd had more from the fans, because when we did get those little snippets from the fan, first off, you realize they've got a very multicultural fan base, and they're just super enthusiastic, which I never associate that level of enthusiastic fandom with highly technical music. You tend to think of the experience as being just sort of austere and mutually respectful with a polite nod of the hat, maybe. But, people were just gushing about the band and how much they love, that one woman says she loves Tony Levin. And, I would have loved to see more of that just to offset all the discussion of discipline and drudgery.
Right.
But that said, I love that it had an arc, and at the end it was very positive. It was very whimsical. I actually looked on IMDb, and they described this as a documentary comedy.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of humor in it, but it's like sometimes so dry.
Oh yeah.
Which it's not a yuck kind of comedy.
It's
thing.
very Robert Fripp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody want to jump on the mic? Got something to say?
Yeah.
Go for it. Get in there.
Yeah, I've got some stuff to get off my chest.
This is it.
No, I do. I really wish that there had just been more music in the documentary. I mean, really, I'm new to King Crimson. I've just never been not that I've never been a big fan. I've just never spent the time to get into their music. And so I heard a lot on there about, the amount of improvisation they do, but I didn't really get an introduction into what that was. It sounded a lot of stuff that was, heavily rehearsed onto a click. But then also, it's interesting to me that this screening came at the same time as Stop Making Sense being back in theaters, because I've gone to see that twice now already since it's been back out. And David Byrne seems like somebody who used to have a maniacal control over his band, or wanted to at least, with their Resistance, and has softened in the years since. And in a way, Robert Fripp seems, I'm going to keep this level of control, and I'm going to find the people who are going to soften to it, and he seems happy in that way, that he's found the people who are going to just kind of, form to his mold. Whereas David Byrne is like, well, I should form to other people's mold more. Anyway, it's been interesting, especially with the, at least one member they have in common, in Adrian Belew. They have a little bit of an intersection there. Anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing. Like, oh wow, we can get the Adrian Belew crossover universe happening here. Anything else? We covered some of the Roger,
and also you got to remember Adrian Belew also crosses over to Zappa. So
yeah, exactly. It all comes together.
He's the through line to all these things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, given that you're watching all these rock docs, one of the things that struck me. Now I've watched it before, but one of the things that struck me watching it tonight was some interesting interviews with the crew and talking about what it takes to put this show on. Not only the guitar techs who talk about the demands of getting everything perfect for the band, but also the more like the staging crew talking about the physical work involved in transporting this equipment and putting this on. Like, do you see that in other rock docs? Because I thought that was incredible.
No, there's this one,
Yeah, how many times did we see a shot of Robert Fripp's effects rack?
Yeah, exactly.
It was like a co-star in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. They'll release the action figures, and the effects rack will be like the special one you send away for. No, I mean, it's not common at all, and it's one of these things. Like, there's some things that, like, some of the recent episodes we talked about, like, we wish that some of these documentaries just were more upfront about the money aspect of things. So that's one of them. But, like, yeah, like what the life is like on the road with them for other people, like the crew. That was really interesting. There's this like one like monologue that like this roadie goes, delivers to the camera that is just about the like pain and suffering of and boredom and drudgery of what he's doing over and over again, and like all these things. And it's just like on its own, like you could recite that monologue as like an acting class. You know what I mean? Thing. It was so good.
But he was clearly in love with it.
Oh yeah,
talking about how horrible the menus were.
Yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
We lose our sight, we lose our hearing.
Yeah, that's just that's par for the course. Yeah, that's also the thing about the movie. I like that it like kind of leavened things up with the comedy. There was all different types of experience in this movie. Like there were times obviously it got really heavy, and there was times that like everybody's laughing, and I don't know. So I guess like sometimes at the end of the episodes, because I'm gonna keep this short because we're here, but sometimes at the end we kind of ask if somebody's not particularly a fan of this band or anything, and then like they just say, hey, what should I watch tonight? Would you recommend this movie? Like as opposed to just somebody being a hardcore fan. So like Michael, I want to get your take.
Probably not. This probably wouldn't be. Are you on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this to your friends? I'm a music dork. I love rock docs. I find something valuable in all of them. But I would probably recommend a few other things before this to somebody who didn't already have a motivation to watch this.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm super steeped in the band, which is why I bought the documentary, but this is not, here's your introduction to the band, or here's your easy history of the band, the way some other rock docs were. This is more, here's a view into a philosophy of music that maybe will appeal to you or not. So it's way more niche than your average rock doc.
I think, it's definitely way more niche, but go ahead.
Okay.
Get there.
This
Get up
is
there.
supposed to be history 50 years worth,
Sure.
but according to, I was reading up on it a little and all that, there was 5 different areas. They were bands. They broke up for years at a time or wasn't around for years at a time.
Right. That wasn't covered in the...
Not at all.
No. It's not that kind of thing where it's like reading the Wikipedia page. You know what I mean? No, go ahead.
Like going off of what he said and kind of what you said, there is that Marky Smith, Marky Smith, the fall kind of component to it. There's just this legion and legions and legions of former members that they interview kind of all throughout, like jumping back and forth. And another thing that was in the documentary that, kind of cracked me up. It reminded me when Black Flag was playing like a decade ago, and they had Black Flag going with Greg Ginn and a bunch of randos, and then they had another band, Flag, going that was all original members of Black Flag. It was almost, commensurate. It was like a Pope anti-Pope situation, right? They were talking about how like in the 2000s they had 21st Century Schizoid Band and King Crimson, and then a member moving from the Schizoid Band into King Crimson itself. So that was just what it reminded me of. Yeah, that's actually a good point. It does kind of flow with the... I like movies where like it's about just like an obsessive weirdo and all the people that are like trapped around their world. You know what I mean? So like I feel like as like a movie, like if you... it's not the kind of thing where it's just like an easy watch, like the Wham documentary, which we loved. Where like you really could recommend that to almost anybody. It's like, very palatable. It goes down so easy. And this one's, not an acquired taste because I didn't know anything a lot about Crimson and I liked it, but I think it was more, it's just, it's not meant to be for everyone.
We've seen all these documentaries with all these assholes with rotating cast members for so many years, and I'm just waiting for the Captain Beefheart one because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be a good one. There's been, Robert Pollard. So, my guy. Anyway, so, all right. I think we should wrap it up. Thanks to our generous hosts, Michael and Kristy, for having us, and Roger for providing the film.
Okay, kind of an abrupt ending, but as you can hear, we were all having a good time, and it went really well. Thanks again to Michael and Kristy for hosting us. Thanks for listening to Rock Docs. If you like what you heard, give us a review, etc. We're on Twitter, X, whatever, at Rock Docs Pod, also Blue Sky, and various other places, Instagram, so at Rock Docs Pod. Rock Docs is a Treble media podcast. Treble is a fully independent media outlet devoted to music, one of the few that remains, unfortunately. And so if you want to support independent music criticism and news and all that good stuff, please go to treblezine.com and you can support them directly, the community of writers and creators behind Treble, at patreon.com/treblezine. So support independent music media. And again, thanks a lot. Bye.
This is the first King Crimson where there's not at least one member in the band that actively resents my presence, which is astonishing.
You could trust a horse, you could trust a dog, but you could never trust a fucking guitar player.
I love you, Robert. I'm sorry I broke your heart. I'm sorry.
That makes me livid.
Some of us went through hell.
Do as you're told.
I can't take this. At one point, I just walked out.
When I came back from making some of that music, my hair had fallen out.
How can I put it? I don't have the problem. The problems lie elsewhere.
The original lineup of King Crimson contained a bunch of and chief amongst those was
I can't be the only sane man in this asylum.